few months ago, I went to the country of Nepal. This experience completely changed my life forever, as I had never been to a country that was so completely different from mine. I'm from the US, which is one of the most industrialized countries in the world, and Nepal is one of the least. Because I found the country so interesting, I decided to interview somebody there. Fast forward 2 months later, and he has intensely denied that I not show that interview due to political conflict in the country. This is the story of Nepal, and the story of why that interview can never be shown. When I got to Nepal, it was the biggest culture shock I could have ever experienced in my life. Just when I was in the airport alone, the power went out twice, which was scary. I had never been in a country like that before. I had never been to Asia, never been in what's considered a third world country. So when I left, after I'd gotten my baggage, I went to get a taxi. Now in the front of this very, very small airport,
there's what looks like a lemonade stand with two guys in it. One's like in his 30s, the other one's really young. He looks about 19 years old. And they tell me they'll take me wherever I need to go. It turns out they work for the airport.
Now I didn't have any Nepali money, so I told them I needed to use an ATM. They tell me there's 2 ATMs. I go to the first one, it doesn't work. I go and I ask about the second one, and the guy goes, "Oh, there is no other ATM." And I was like, "Oh, well, you told me there is." Randomly, this guy comes out of nowhere and is like, "Hey man, I'll show you to the other ATM." And I was like, "Okay." And then the government worker freaks out and is like, "No, don't listen to him. Don't listen to him. He's a drunkard. He's a drunk." And it turns out that the government worker was the one lying. He made up that the other guy was a drunk so that I wouldn't follow him and take his money. And that's the thing about Nepal. It's a very poor country, so literally anybody will do anything for money. If I was walking on the street for more than 2 minutes, I got offered for someone to sell me anything at least 5 times in a 2 minute period. Anything from drugs to sex to different rocks and different things that they were selling on the street. The reason I'm telling you this story is that you can understand how bad the political system and the government is set up in Nepal. Now, there's a reason for why this is the case.
In December of 2007, a 10-year insurgency resulted in the end of monarchy rule in Nepal. There had been a monarch in Nepal for 240 years.
And since this time, Nepal has not been able to get its feet on the ground when it comes to having a government. As of early 2016, 9 separate times a new leader has come to take over the country since the insurgency in 2007. Now, when I was talking to the person I interviewed, the thing that surprised me the most is what he told me he wanted for leadership in his country. He told me that he wished to have his king back. He wanted a king back to rule the country. And it's hard to believe that a normal person would want that, would want a king to rule him. But his reasoning made sense. With so many governments, with so many leaders coming over to take over the country, nothing can get done. And none of this is evidenced more than by the earthquake that hit Nepal in 2015. This was a huge deal. In the US, it was covered very widely by the media, and I believe covered widely all over the world.
This earthquake left 9,000 people dead, 22,000 injured, and 3.5 million people without homes. I want you to burn your freaking house to the ground and go sleep outside for a month or maybe 2 years. That's what it's been like for some of these people in Nepal. It's completely and absolutely devastating for them.
Now fast forward 2 years later, so many buildings I saw were still completely destroyed.
There's still so many people left in Nepal that are homeless. And it's because the government switches so much that they can't get anything done. Now when I was there was a group of kids that were maybe 5 or 6 years old that were clearly homeless. And I watched them every single night doing drugs, okay? That's not okay. These are human beings just like you.
I went to Durbar Square, which is one of the most important spiritual centers in all of Nepal.
And temples and just the point of their cultural being and who they are were still badly damaged.
It's hard to believe that such an important center would not have been fixed 2 years later. Other issues I saw with the country that the government really needed to fix were that there was a huge trash problem.
It was honestly disgusting. I felt terrible for the people that had to go through that on a daily basis. I couldn't even imagine.
It was like nothing I'd ever seen. Extreme poverty. I believe more than 70% of the country doesn't have clean water. In the US, we freak out about when one city, Flint, Michigan, which is important, they do need clean water. Think about if 70% of your country did not have clean water. Now, when I interviewed him, I asked him, what are the things about your country that you love the most? And he said it was the people.
How kind they are, how respectful they are. The entire time I was there, I never felt like I was in danger. And the most incredible thing that he said about the people there was how happy they are. The things that these people have gone through, and still so many of them are so happy. We could learn from these type of people. If the train's late, something as insignificant as that, we let it ruin our days, and there's just absolutely no reason.
Now, my favorite thing about Nepal was the beauty of the nature, and also the culture itself was very interesting.
There was incredible mountains with just the most beautiful sunsets, different types of nature that I think you could only see in that part of the world, mountains that were completely covered in trees. And another aspect I loved in Nepal was the spiritual part of it. That's the reason I went to Nepal, actually. And I loved going to the monkey temples, and I actually stayed in a temple myself for about 11 days and took a vow of silence and meditated 11 hours a day, which was crazy, but I'll never forget those streets and just the atmosphere and just what it's like to be there.
And when I was in Nepal, I made a really good friend, and he told me something that was just absolutely beautiful and absolutely brilliant. He said that, think about it, in a year from now, you'll be back home, you'll be playing Xbox, PlayStation, eating at nice restaurants, sleeping in your bed, driving your car. These people will still be here. They will still be dealing with this government that they cannot trust. They will still be living in fear, living on the streets, living in a country that in places is broken. I just want you to remember how lucky you are to be where you are. I know we get caught up in our heads and we get caught over these things that feel like they matter so much, but they really don't. One of the most important things when it comes to happiness is appreciating what you have. And I promise you, just the ability to breathe, to be on this earth, to have what you have is honestly so much, and we are so lucky. And with that, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment if you want to. I would love to have a conversation with you guys. And with that, I say, namaste.